Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Cal Athletics Fund Coaches Caravan. My name is Brian Mann. I'm the Chief Development Officer at Cal, and I'm thrilled to have you here. This is our second Coaches Caravan in a series of four. Many of you who are joining us for the second time will remember that we decided to reimagine these caravan events in the wake of the pandemic and the shelter-in-place restrictions to provide different content to the Cal community and to find different ways to bring you together to learn more about what's happening at Cal, to celebrate some of the great things that have happened here. And today we're incredibly excited about the Pro Bear perspective. Before we do that, I just want to thank everybody for joining us. We've got 280 people registered, including 150 alumni. We've got representatives from every decade going all the way back to the 1950s with at least 10 people from that era here. We have 5 countries represented and 12 states. So it's truly the strength of the Cal community is on display today. The objective today is to hear from some of our best and brightest, some of those that came to Cal and were able to grow and excel at such a rate where they've gone on to have and continue to have successful careers as professional athletes and coaches. This is going to be a lot of fun for us at Cal Athletics. A lot of times we put these together, and though we are surrounded by incredible talent and people, we get to be with them quite often, almost every day. And so for us to bring these group of people together today is going to be fun even for us. So we hope you'll enjoy it as much as we do. We're going to ask them some questions. We're going to be led by a moderator, one of our own. We'll introduce the panelists to you in just a minute. And we're going to save a little bit of time at the end for you to ask them questions. The call is being recorded, and though the chat function is disabled, if you scroll your cursor over the screen right now at the bottom, you'll see a Q&A function. Please submit your questions at any time, and we'll do our very best to present them to the panelists as we move along towards the end of our hour. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it. And before we get to the panelists, it's my pleasure to welcome back Director of Athletics, Jim Knowlton. Since we were together a couple of weeks ago, as always happens in college athletics, but seemingly this time more than ever, things are changing quickly, rapidly, and there's a lot to be discussed. So Jim, we're thrilled to have you here, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Ryan, thanks so much, and truly thank you everybody for joining us. We've been doing these, and we've been getting incredible feedback, and what people don't know is we really have a lot of fun doing them as well. And it's been nice to connect with people, share, and bring in different experts. I'd like to thank Brian Mann to start. His team, along with himself, have set this up, and these caravans continue to inform, educate, and give us a little bit of a peek behind the curtain on what's happening in the Cal Athletic Department and what's happening with our alums as they go off and do great things. Big thanks to Dave Durden for running this today, and certainly all of our panelists, which you're going to get to hear more about. And certainly we're excited about those that joined us today. A lot's happened since March. And if you've been paying attention, it's really been a roller coaster ride for the country, certainly for athletics. And, I think back to sitting in Vegas early in March. We just beat Stanford. Big upset, feeling great about our men's basketball team. We're getting ready for UCLA the next day, and the basketball championship's canceled. Then all of our winter sports, including Dave Durden's team that was on its way to the national championship after winning Pac-12 championship, and many other of our winter sports were stopped short in their championship season, and then all of our spring sports were canceled as well. And as you can imagine, for us, the student athletes and the pain and just disappointment was incredibly hard for us to deal with and for them to deal with. And we've worked really hard to manage and communicate and stay connected over the last 3 months just to continue to grow our department and get ready for what may happen next. And just when we thought it was, a COVID challenge was all we could handle, George Floyd was murdered. And I think it really caused all of us to take a step back, reassess our priorities, and say, what are we doing? How is this happening? And what are we going to do to make this better? And in our athletic department, these last couple of weeks, we spent a lot of time talking to our African American community. We've had our Black Student Athlete Executive Council. I spent an hour plus with them talking about where are they, how are they feeling, and then we've done the same with all of our coaches and all of our department, and then we spent some time just with our Black coaches and our Black staff. Talked a lot about where are they, and I think the overwhelming feeling is disappointed, sad, exhausted, and I think we're all hurting, and it's crushing in an athletic department to see some of your teammates really in the spot that we're all in and the spot that they're in, and as everyone can see, I'm a white male, and all of these discussions have really made it obvious that my experience is not the same as a Black American today. And so this is going to be a team effort that's going to help work, solve, fix. We had done our strategic plan, and it really laid out two of our strategic goals, which were diversity, equity, inclusion, and culture, which we had a huge amount of our department help us develop, and we were on our way executing a lot of those. And as we look at it, we have to now redouble our efforts and look at it again, and that's exactly what we're doing as we stay engaged. And I think my message to everybody, both our department has been and for all of the members of the Black community, is we have to be in this together. This isn't a Black problem. This is all of our problem, and we have to be better together, and we will be. So I'm sure everybody is feeling how we're feeling, and I think at Cal we have to be leaders, and we are going to lead during these challenging times. Other things that are happening pale in comparison, but this week the chancellor just came out yesterday and said we're coming back to campus. Most of the instruction will be virtual, but we will have classes of 25 or less. We came out with our statement that we are now beginning to allow students to return for volunteer workouts. And immediately I got tons of questions on what's the football season look like. And I've shared with many that I have a crystal ball under my desk. And not only can I tell you how many games we're going to play, but I can also tell you what the scores of each game will be if you'd like to know. I think it'll ruin it for all of you, but I certainly can do that if someone wants to know. We're excited this time of the year. Normally our kids who are going to summer school are here. Our student athletes are doing voluntary workouts, and really that's all they're going to do. Berkeley Public Health only allows right now that you can go out and condition. And so we still aren't opening any facilities, but we'll be able to condition in a socially distanced manner for those folks that decide to return. Obviously, there's still lots that's happening, and I think what you're going to find at Cal is we're going to err on the side of risk mitigation and safety, and our most important tenet that we're following is the safety of our Cal community and certainly the safety of our student athletes and our staff. And so more to follow as we see things changing, health experts giving us different advice. But I think it's going to be a slow fall, and we're hoping that we will get to play our fall sports. It may not be with fans, but certainly our kids are aching to get back and get back to competing. I'm excited about today. I'm thankful for all of you to join us, and I want you to really ask some tough questions of our panelists today when you get the chance. Thanks again. Stay safe. Go Bears. And I'll turn it back over to Brian.
Great, Jim. Thank you very much. We appreciate all that. Certainly the insight's helpful as things continue to move, evolve, and change every single day. So, but now it's time to get to our panel. And I'm going to start by introducing each one of them, and I'll finish with our moderator. And of course, they've had long and very successful careers. So I'm just going to touch on a few highlights here, but we'll start with Lasia Clarendon. who was a decorated guard for the Bears. She was a member of the 2010 WNIT championship team. She led Cal to its first NCAA Final Four in 2013 when she led the team in scoring. She was the 2013 Pac-12 Scholar Athlete of the Year for women's basketball, and she was a first-round selection of the Indiana Fever in the 2013 WNBA draft. She's currently a member of the New York Liberty, and we're thrilled to have her here. So, Leja, welcome.
Oh, how to get off mute. Hey there. Happy to be here. Of course, wish it was under a lot better circumstances, but, anytime you get to be a part of this Cal community, it's really special. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, great. Well, we're thrilled to have you here. Next up is Nathan Adrian. Nathan's a 10-time NCAA champion. He was a public health major who was awarded the Cal's top male student athlete award with the highest GPA. He's a 3-time Olympic swimmer, 8 Olympic medals, 5 gold. He's still going strong out there, and I think he's even training today as we speak. So it's great to have you here, Nathan.
Hey guys, yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to get this started.
Next up is Ron Rivera. So Coach Rivera was a consensus All-American linebacker at Cal in 1983 when he recorded 26.5 sacks, which is still the school record today. That same year, he was named the Pac-10 Co-Defensive Player of the Year before going on to a long career with the Chicago Bears, including as a member of the 1985 Super Bowl champs. I'm from outside of Boston, Coach, so we won't talk about who you beat in that Super Bowl game. 2-time NFL Coach of the Year for the Carolina Panthers, including leading them to Super Bowl 50. He just recently took over a new head coaching job in the NFL, and I'm sure we'll talk about that quite a bit. So, Coach Rivera, it's great to have you here.
Thank you, Brian. This is really kind of cool. To be back and involved with the University of California, Berkeley is really neat. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, we're great to have you here. And lastly, and I'll finish here and turn it over to our moderator, Dave Durden. And for those of you who don't know Coach, he loves long and detailed introductions. So I won't do that today. Just a few highlights. He's in his 13th season, or just finished as Cal's head men's swimming and diving coach. He's Team USA's head coach for the Olympics, which will now take place next summer in Tokyo. He's led Cal to 4 NCAA championships and has been a 5-time National Coach of the Year. He's a great guy. He's going to lead us through this discussion, and we're thrilled to have you here. Coach Durden.
Thanks, Brian, and thanks everyone for being on this. I'm excited to be your virtual tour guide as I moderate the discussion amongst our Cal legends, and I'm humbled to have this task. So my goal is to not do a lot of talking, but to get these three to talk a lot over the next 40 plus minutes that we have together. So I'm going to jump right into it. And we're going to talk a little bit about the path that everyone had to their professional athletic or professional coaching career, and how their time at Cal contributed to that. I'm going to start off with Coach Rivera, but before I ask Coach Rivera about his pathway, I would be remiss not to say congratulations on being nominated for the College Football Hall of Fame. That is awesome. That is a tremendous honor, and it's great that anytime someone in our Cal community is nominated into their respective Hall of Fame, it's awesome. So congratulations on that. I want to hear first a little bit about having played in the NFL, having beat the Patriots in 1985, and as Brian mentioned, I don't even know if they showed up at that game the way that you guys dismantled them. And now just kind of going from being a player to being a coach. This is a loaded question, but going from a player to being a coach, and then how Cal influenced you both as a professional athlete and now as a coach.
Well, Dave, I was fortunate enough to have grown up on the West Coast. I grew up down in Monterey Bay. So going to Cal really was a natural fit for me, and I truly enjoyed my time there at Cal. I was very fortunate. I thought the education I got wasn't just about academics as much as it was about the world in itself. I thought it really helped to prepare me as I was getting ready to move on in life. I was fortunate enough to play major college football in the Pac, and then get the opportunity to get into the NFL. And playing in Chicago was phenomenal. It really was. I was very fortunate to have been drafted by them. Fortunate enough, my second season that we got into the Super Bowl and won it. We were the youngest team at the time to win it. We thought we'd go back a few more times, and we didn't. And, I can truly tell you it's a very difficult thing to get there. So let alone win it. So I was very fortunate to have that happen. I think the thing about Cal that I really did appreciate more so than anything else is the people. You meet some tremendous people, not just your teammates, not just the student body, but the professors, the instructors. There's a lot of people that really are there for your opportunities and growth. That they really are people that do care about you. They're people that did want to help guide you and lead you in that direction. So I just felt that when I left Cal and went on to the NFL, I was ready. I was prepared. And then getting the opportunity after I retired from football to get involved and become a coach. Again, I think a lot of it had to do with just having been in this type of environment as you grow up, because I think being in a place that's worldly, being at a place that, you're not sheltered, I think you learn so many lessons in life. I think you learn things that are invaluable that you don't get taught, that you don't receive the opportunity to see and put your hands on unless you're at a place like this. And this to me, Cal really is a place amongst itself that people you've got to experience it, truly appreciate it. And I was very fortunate that I had that opportunity.
Do you notice a difference with a Cal football player coming into the league, versus, for lack of better words, someone that's not from Cal coming into the league? I mean, what are the characteristics that you notice in the coaching realm?
It's interesting because, when we scout players and we interview players, one of the things I always do is always look at where they came from. And I think, a young man coming from the University of California, Berkeley, having experienced it myself, is a young man that's going to be well-rounded, a young man that's going to have experience a lot more than just, the rigors of, going to classes, practicing football, and getting up the next day and just repeat and then going on. At Cal, there's so many things, so many opportunities for you to grow and experience that, you really aren't just a guy that's kind of, been regimented into doing these things over and over and over. You learn to appreciate your situation, your circumstances, and look beyond just the game itself. And I think that's really important in a young man, because you do want guys that are well-rounded and guys that can experience and have had experiences that, can help them grow and continue to be the type of men that you need on your football team.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach. Leja, you have played around the world. You were part of the 2009 U19 World Championship team. You've played professionally in the Czech Republic and now for the New York Liberty. Tell us more about your journey, what impact Cal had, and what you learned from playing overseas.
Oh, I think it's a lot similar to what Ron spoke to about kind of how worldly Cal is. Like, it's a place that, in some ways it might scare people to hear that, but you feel like you're a small fish thrown in a huge pond when you come to Cal. And I think that's one of the best experiences you can have as a young person. I'm from Southern California, so my dad was really upset I didn't go to UCLA, but my heart was always in Berkeley, as a young, gay kid who wasn't out yet. And just as the history that Cal has and the eclecticness and, I would say, the weirdos that exist up here that just, anything really goes at Cal. And it's a place where everyone can find home. And so in that, I also just got to experience different types of people. I grew up, my mom is Black and my dad is white. And I lived somewhere where mostly see Black and white people. Sometimes you see some Mexican folks, Latinx folks, but really not experiencing that. I mean, Pacific Islanders or Asian people or indigenous folks. And so across the spectrum, Indian folks. And so being at Cal's campus, you really just see your eyes are wide open. You hear so many different languages. You experience different foods. It's like taking a world tour in culture. And one of the things Joanne Boyle did, my coach at the time, was she didn't let us room with our teammates. And she said we needed to get outside of our athletic bubble, because we all know that bubble that we can kind of just sit in our teams, and it's our safety net on campus. We know we have our buddies in the athletic department. And that was one of the best things she could have done for us too, because again, it forced us to get outside and to experience, I call them, normal people, a normal student, what their life was like, and connect with them. And so in so many ways, I remember just, trying Thai food for the first time. Growing up, I just ate a pretty normal, bland American diet, soul food and, Mexican food being from SoCal, but trying Indian food and Thai food and just, being awakened to the world and to so many people who are different from you. And you do get that from sports a lot too. You start to see people. I had teammates from, Senegal, some from Israel, and all over the world. And so then when I went to Czech to play, I only played actually my rookie year. I didn't end up playing overseas as much as I thought I would. But again, sports has kind of taken me in that experience to just go around the world, somewhere I would have probably never just moved to on my own to go live. I'm like shoveling the ice off my car and, late January as a California kid, like, what am I doing over here? But again, living somewhere where the culture and the language was different. And particularly at a time right now when we need to see ourselves in each other more than ever, I think that's what Cal embodies, that there's every type of person on that campus. And so you're just forced to get along, to learn different experiences, to be around people that don't just reflect how you look. You're forced to kind of have empathy and understand different issues. And so that is, like, I think one of the greatest gifts that Cal has given me. And I think gives any student athlete.
Sport is such a world language. I'm just curious how you were able to communicate with your teammates in the Czech Republic. I'm guessing there was obviously some players from the U.S., but just as a whole, how did that? What was that experience like in being in a different country and being able to communicate with your teammates through the sport of basketball?
It was definitely interesting. So our point guard was Spanish, so she spoke a lot of Spanglish. So you're picking up some of that. And we had players on our team from Germany, some who just spoke all different types of languages. And I was really lucky that my coach spoke English enough that I could understand her. Some places you go, you literally have a translator. And a lot of my teammates who played in China, it's you have your translator lives and breathes with you everywhere you go. But I had people who spoke enough English that we could, parse it out. And then you start to pick up the other words, like when the point guard's talking in Spanish, all right, I'm picking up what she's saying. And generally you have some language in sport you could see the demonstrative language. You're like, okay, she's mad. I'm glad I don't speak the language right now. I'm just going to run back on defense. So there's a level, again, of getting outside yourself. How do you experience it? It was really interesting living in the community too, specifically. So going to the grocery store was I lived on Google Translator, and sometimes I'd put it in the WhatsApp group to my teammates who knew, I'd be like, is this tuna in oil or water? Or is this beef or pork? Just being at the store. And people kind of looking at you too, you're definitely not from here, but what are you? Are you American? Are you European? Kind of being racially ambiguous. People just, weren't sure how to place you. So having that experience too was really interesting. And I got a lot of flack for not, at least knowing Spanish, being from California. So I think that's where we gotta be better as Americans and get up on our language a little better.
Yes, amen to that. Nathan, next year is going to be your fourth time preparing for the Olympic Games. How are you able to have such a successful path? And I'm going to read this on here because this isn't my joke. This is somebody else that wrote this for me. I mean, outside of incredible coaching, what else has contributed to your success?
Yeah, well, besides the incredible coaching, I actually really just going back, and I think probably a lot of people will have this very similar or the same experience walking into either Pimentel or Wheeler Hall and being in just one of those classes that's honestly pretty massive. Can be a little bit intimidating. I was a 17-year-old freshman. I had to fax my forms home so my mom would sign them for me. But you walk in and the professors they're all going, hey, you know what? You are the best of the best in your high schools, but here we are, and none of that matters. And you're going to have to earn it here at Cal. And that was something that definitely stuck with me. And I think that's actually going even further back when we were making the college decision process. I was lucky to have a few choices, and a couple of them were, I think the application process was a 2-page, fill in the blank, or maybe fill in the bubbles, and then maybe a half-page essay. And one of them I got in right away, and I got an academic scholarship, which I did not deserve at all. In high school, no way. And so that was kind of a turnoff. I was no, I'm here to challenge myself. I'm here to compete. And that's what Cal offers. You know, a young, hungry, competitive person like myself. And each and every day, you found that you had to earn it. You had to work really hard academically. You had to work really hard in the pool to earn your spot. And you know, lettering at Cal and swimming is certainly no joke. So I think being forced to being held accountable and always knowing that I do have to earn it has definitely contributed to being able to swim and compete at this level for so long. Oh, man.
I think I know the school that you were talking about that had the 2-page application. I was at another school and I was recruiting you at that point in time.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. Let's pivot. Let's go ahead and pivot to talk about COVID and just talk about the last 3 months, considering the circumstances surrounding the pandemic and how each of you have been handling that. I'm going to start off with Leisha. You know, obviously it's tough because it impacts your training schedule. What does your training schedule look like now? And I'm sorry, I've got my notes covering me there a little bit. What does your training schedule look like now? And what do you think the future looks like for basketball?
It's a good one. So training schedule now looks like, so most recently in the last week or so, I've finally gotten in a private gym. So just I have the code and I literally just get to go in there and shoot on the gun and like remember how to run and slide and do like basketball specific movements. So that's been a really nice reprieve. And like as our season was announced, so as we're going into our season, a much needed ramp up period, because you always worry about like injuries having been out of training so long, specific basketball training. So we've all been training. But before that, and still it looks like, you know, just as rigorous as it was before, if not a little more just frustrating and difficult with, you know, carrying the weights up from the garage to the room and trying to find the band and trying to find a place that you could jump today. Or, you know, I was like running up to the Cal Beach volleyball courts and like using that sand and like being like, well, the gate was open. So like, don't find me or give me a ticket. So, you know, it's got me in nature in some ways. I think that's been the really fun positive of like getting us outdoors more, because I train inside for basketball so much. So I think that's been the silver lining. But one of the first things I did was order a spin bike. Wasn't a Peloton. I wasn't ready to quite pull the punch on that one, knowing how much I'd really use it. Because when we first started, right, we all thought like, we'll use this for a few weeks, we'll be back to normal life. And here we are now, months later. So I've used the Peloton app a ton on the spin bike. I actually text some of the Cal coaches like Kai Felton and Charmin and like, do this workout or this one, you know, kicked my butt today. So that I've like lived on the spin bike and just training, doing a lot of functional stuff. I'm coming off the ankle injury this last summer. So in a lot of ways, this downtime has really given me the opportunity to focus on like even more specific rehab that you're always kind of rehabbing as an athlete and prehabbing and doing those things to make sure you're doing injury prevention, but in a way that you normally don't quite have as much like mental capacity to give to it daily. Like you're trying to get it in, but I've had a lot more room to really like nail it down, work on balance, and a lot of functional movements. And then the cool thing about the future of what basketball looks like is we announced our season. So we're going to play 22 games at IMG Academy in Florida, at what they're calling the clean side or the bubble right now. And it's the new normal. I mean, for me, as someone who's been in California, that's been sheltering in place, I'm like, freedom, like I get to go see people, like I get to go see teammates and hang out. I know some people have been in other states that have been open. They're like, oh God, they're going to lock us down and put us in this space. But I'm like, this is cool. I haven't seen like anyone but my wife in like months. And so I'm really looking forward to getting back on the court, because sport has, you know, it's the refuge for so many of us. And in a time when, you know, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and people are being murdered on camera and in the streets, which has always happened. But we have the pandemic, and then we have, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement. It's like the one thing I want to do is just go play basketball and have like a little time to escape it all and to just have the joy of playing and growing and learning. And so that being stripped away in this moment has been, I think, what the hardest part mentally has been. We haven't had our escape as athletes, my space to just like be free and feel like you're flying out there and not having to worry about anything else. So the future of basketball, I'm really looking forward to like personally having that back, and then getting the WBA back on TV and on camera. And it's just a space where we just negotiated like the most historic CBA ever this last off season, and then 2020 hit. So that was a hit to everybody. And so to have us, you know, be back out there, and our league is committed to paying us 100% of our salary this year. And so that's been a really huge positive in the middle of all this, and just kind of give people women's sports back and women's basketball back, but also like the voices we need to hear right now are these leaders and the women. And our league is 80% Black. We have quite a few queer players in our league too. And so that's what you've heard right now in the middle of this movement is like, follow Black women, listen to the women who've been leading the movement this whole time. And so I think it's so important to hear our league coming back and the opportunity that we have from an activist and an organizing standpoint of how we can impact society and make a positive change.
Have you imagined, just to kind of stop for a second and imagine what it would be like to play in an empty arena with no fans around, and what goes on in your mind as you kind of, you know, play that out?
I know, I think it's not really sunken in that you'd play with no fans, because it's just like, we get to play, I don't care. And then we'll get there, then we'll complain about all the things now we don't have. But we've actually talked about like crowd noise and stuff. And they use that overseas a lot, actually, because the arenas aren't as big and they're smaller. So sometimes teams will practice with crowd noise. So I'm curious to really see what it feels like. And I think it's going to be the ultimate mental challenge of like hyping yourself up and your teammates hyping you up, because you have those games anytime in your career where it's like a Wednesday night, you're like, woo, the crowd is not in it. Like, they are not here. Like, we gotta bring it for ourselves. We're on the road or at home. And so I think that'll be the mental side of like, we have to have those 12 players all have to have each other's back.
Fair enough. That's awesome. Nathan, you know, obviously, you know, we've been in close communication daily with your training and your preparation. Talk a little bit about how you've adjusted training, maintained the momentum. How are you handling all these different changes? I mean, I see you every day in the water, but I know there's more to it than that with what you're doing at home from a strength perspective. So talk to us a little bit about how you've been able to adjust during this time.
Yeah. So I think just even backing up just a little bit to when the Olympics were finally postponed, when it was just very clear that the right thing to do was to postpone the Olympics. And one of the things that we did as a group, of course, with your leadership, was lay off the throttle just a little bit. Because when we were going through that whole situation, as things were getting bad in the United States, we were in Colorado Springs going all out, right? It was literally eat, sleep, train, breathe swimming, talk to nutritionists, talk to physiologists, everything, 24/7. And that really is out of design. It's not sustainable for honestly all that long. If you try to, for instance, if we were in that situation right now, there's no way we could go all the way through next summer's Olympics. So I think rolling off the throttle was really important. Took a little bit of time out. But with that, I did actually see the writing on the wall just a little bit, I think, with my public health background. And right when the shelter in place was ordered in the Bay Area, I hopped online and ordered myself a little weight rack and some weights. So it still took like 3.5, 4 weeks to get to me, but I eventually got it, have a little setup in the garage. Now realize that the floor up to the living room is a lot thinner than I originally thought. So my wife is like, "What is he doing down there?" Just, you know, my normal lifting stuff. What do you think? So yeah, that's it's been crazy. It's been very different, and we've actually been swimming a little bit. Myself and a guy that I trained with, you coached, Will Copeland, also on the national team, bought a swim school from another two former Cal alums, and Ann Curtis. She was a 1948 London Olympian, 2 golds and a silver, and Gordon Cuneo, who was actually on the men's basketball team at Cal. So we had that little connection, and we saw that, you know, we all had a passion for teaching people, and especially kids, how to swim, and that's where we have been able to swim a little bit during this time.
Now, so your schedule is up in the morning, train, and then you get to be in my role. You get to get on the deck and coach. So how has that been?
So my schedule is actually wake up really early because my puppy is barking, and let her out and pray that she goes both to the bathroom both ways instead of just one, because if she goes just one, then 30 minutes later she has to go out again. So that's the wake up portion. Get up here, we get a little swim in, and like you said, we are allowed under the sports camp allocation up here in Marin County to have little groups of 12 athletes together in the pool, and part of the restrictions is that each of those summer camps that we do has to have a separate coach. So I took on the role of being a coach for those 12 athletes, and that's actually been really fun. Shout out to you, because basically I just take your workout and adjust maybe some of the intervals and whatever, and they all think I'm just the amazing coach. So I'll let this call in on the secret that I'm really just giving Dave's workouts, but please don't tell them. They think I'm great.
Perfect. Coach, how are you planning for the upcoming NFL season? I mean, what do you think's next for football? Just walk me through how you're handling your group and how you're handling your staff during this time.
David, it's been very different for us. Obviously, we did a virtual draft. That was probably the first big step that we did. And, it was the commissioner's desire to try and keep things as normal as possible, and thought that having the draft, doing it virtually, showing everybody that, hey, we're trying to do safe practicing, and just kind of show everybody that you can do some things and you can still kind of stick to a routine. And we were able to do it, and the draft was a hit. It was a success. So it worked out that way. It was very positive. And then what happened was, we really weren't able to get hands-on our players, bring them into our facilities and do our normal OTAs and mini camp workouts. So we had to do virtual coaching. And what we learned to use was the Zoom technology and all the technology that comes with it, dropping in PowerPoints, using video, using diagrams that you've created. There's so many things that you can do with the Zoom technology that it really worked well for us. We literally, today was our last day of our off-season program with our veterans. Our rookies have 2 more days next week. And so we're just pretty much finishing what would have been our normal program had we started back in April. So today the veterans are done, and then starting next week we'll finish up with the rookies. It looks like we're trying to figure out best practices in terms of the protocols that we need to follow, the rules that we need to follow for social distancing as much as you can when you're not actually practicing against one another. It's one of the things that I know the league, the NFL and the NFLPA are working together to try and come up with a protocol that we'll have to follow. Training camp, they're hoping will start at the end of July, beginning of August. They still haven't really set the date as much as they've given us an idea. And then we'll go from there. But it is different because we're going to still try and incorporate some of our Zoom meetings, during the preseason. I guess the key word there is that they talk about is exposure. To limit your exposure to situations, circumstances. You do the social distancing, and one of the things that they've talked about doing is finding a way to continue to use the technology that we've become accustomed to so far. So that's been good. We've learned a lot. We've learned a lot about us in terms of you can teach some old dogs new tricks, because I'm not the most tech savvy guy, and I'm very far removed from the millennials today. And thank goodness for IT directors and assistants who spent a lot of time with me trying to teach me this stuff. But it's been really great. It really has, and just very fortunate, that we are like the WNBA preparing to play. I'm excited about that, and I think that's really cool that the WNBA will be starting up pretty soon.
And Coach, you have an amazing IT assistant there in your house. She was on earlier getting you set up. So a shout out to your wife doing a great job getting you set up and squared away. How has your rookies, you're a new coach in a new city, in a new town, but obviously your draft picks are making this transition to the NFL and doing it in a way in a virtual space. How have you been able, outside of the Zoom how do you feel like your rookies have been able to really assimilate into the culture that you're trying to lay down?
That's one of the hard things is again, you don't get an opportunity to get hands-on. You don't get an opportunity to be up close and personal with them right now. And it's a little removed when you try to talk to them directly over the phone or by Zoom when you're one-on-one. And so that's been a little bit different for me. I like to meet with people personally, and I try to develop those relationships because I do think they're important. I think you have to know and get to understand and kind of figure out where everybody's from and the type of personalities they are and how they're going to fit into your organization. So we're a little behind in terms of that because we haven't a chance to really sit down and meet. We've had a chance to put everybody in the same room. We've had two complete total team meetings where, it was all the players, the staff, and the support staff were on together, about 135, 140 people. And it still felt awkward to me personally in terms of trying to reach out and talk to these guys. So I do look forward to the opportunity to get a chance to meet them. I think our rookies have handled it very well. They've assimilated nicely to the rules that we've kind of laid out to them in terms of, hey, you've got to be on at this time, you've got to be on at that time. When you're done, when the veterans are done, you get your break, and then you got to come back on, because with the rookies you get a little bit more time. We have development programs that we have, not just football, but life skills, social skills that the NFL has us set up, and we teach our players with our director of player developments. So we're really trying to help these young guys get along, and our guys have been pretty good. I'm pretty excited about it because of who they are. We've got young men from all over the United States, and I'm just excited about trying to bring them all together.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach. In addition to this pandemic, each of you are leaders within your own space, and we're tackling the nation is tackling the issue of racial and social injustice. I'm going to start out with Nathan. How has Team USA supported you and your teammates during this time, and how can the sport of swimming help?
Yeah, so I do think Team USA and USA Swimming in particular has certainly had open conversations, and I think that's important. I think that anybody on the national team can call our CEO and he'll pick up, and if not, he'll just send you a text right back and say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm busy, but let's arrange a time to chat soon. I think that's incredibly important. And then I guess me from a personal level, going back to my time at Cal, I do find it both a blessing and a curse to sort of live and exist in this little bubble. And in a way, anybody who takes a breadth requirement and actually studies the material knows that racism still exists in the United States today. So I guess I'm a little bit guilty. Actually, I'm 100% guilty of thinking that I was doing my part by just knowing and having that knowledge. And at this point, I think it's very clear that not everybody has that knowledge, and being an athlete and having a sort of a, I guess, podium to stand on, my role is to talk about it and to have conversations that can be uncomfortable. Again, going back to that public health background that I had at Cal, I mean, almost every health outcome in America is suboptimal unless you are white. And those, they can actually tease those out because when, whatever color your skin is or whatever culture you come from, when they bring them back to where they're from and not experiencing, racism, systemic racism, or whatever stress may occur from not being the predominant culture, those health inequities don't exist. So anyways, I guess what I'm saying is my role is no longer acceptable to just have that knowledge, and it's to talk about it to anybody who will listen.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate, you're a mentor in our program, not only through who you are and how long that you've been at this, but just the things that you've accomplished. You have that platform, that space in our program. So I appreciate the things that you have been doing within our team. It's a challenge for me because I can't coach our undergraduate student athletes, so I don't see them that often. So I really lean on guys like yourself to be a voice within our group, and so I appreciate that. Now, Ron, how have you chosen to lead your team during this time?
I've been through a couple of things that have been really interesting as a head coach. When I was in Carolina, we signed Eric Reed, and Eric is one of the other players that started the dealing for Black Lives Matter, for injustice, inequities, and policing. And so there was a lot of brouhaha about us signing Eric. And one of the things that I did, I like to prepare myself. I like to educate myself on what's going on. So I went out, and I have it with me because I had to break it out again, but I got the Constitution of the United States, and I read it, and I read all the Bill of Rights, all the amendments, and then I Googled the oath of office: preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And when we signed Eric, we didn't have a discussion about his politics. All we had a discussion about was football. After we signed him, I talked to him, and we had a great conversation, and it was a very enlightening one. And a lot like what Nathan said, you think you think you understand, but you can have some empathy for it, but unless you really know, it's hard to sit there because even though I am of color, I'm not of that color. I'm not black. I'm not a Black American. And so Eric really helped me to truly get a great feeling, great understanding. And so when people said to me, "Well, what are you going to do if he kneels?" I said, "I'm going to stand next to him. I'm going to support him." And the reason being is because when I read the oath of office, and it said, "Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution." Constitution says that he's entitled. It's his freedom. It's right there in the First Amendment. I mean, for goodness sake. So I just felt that, you know what, that's it. And so that's how it's been for me. So then the murder of George Floyd was another eye opener. It was a huge eye opener. And one of the things that I did, and after seeing it on TV and hearing some things, I talked to my team. And it was about, hey, listen, you guys have issues. Some of you guys want to talk. Now's an opportunity. Let's talk about these things. We're here for you. We want to listen. And then I really thought, gosh, did I really cover enough? And so I reached out. I talked to some sports psychologists that I know, two of them that work for the NFL. One's a clinician, and a third one a clinician, and talked to them about how to reach out, how to talk. And then there's an activist that works with the NFL, a gentleman named Tony Porter, was a tremendous individual. And so I've worked with him in the past. I reached out to Tony and we talked. Tony's an African-American. He has this program called A Call to Bend, which is a nationwide program. And so he and I talked, and he gave me some direction. I reached out to the clergy, a couple of clergymen that I know, and I talked, and we discussed these things. And I mean, I even reached out to a pollster to say, hey, what are some of the things that I've got to be aware of out there? And then I talked to our entire organization. And we talked about these things, and really we had a discussion. Honestly, it was more of just me talking, and then said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have town halls. And we had 5 of them. We had about 300 people on that first Zoom call, and then we broke them up into 5 different groups. And that way, because it's hard to hear 300 people at the same time. So we just felt the best thing to do was to break them into town halls. And we started to do this, and our owner said he wanted to contribute $250,000 of seed money to kickstart any programs that we would come up with. And it was really enlightening for a lot of us to listen to the other folks during these town halls, to the Black employees that we had, to the Black athletes, and just kind of hear them. And the thing that really struck was the pain. I mean, the disappointment, the fear, the anger. I mean, there were so many emotions that, as you listen to the folks talk, that you really, it was just one of those things. So that's kind of been what we've had to, work with and try and come up with these solutions. So we brought everybody together. We did the town halls. We've made a commitment to going forward with it. We've actually started what's called the BEN, the Black Engagement Network. It's something that originated through the NFL. There's chapters throughout the NFL, and we just started our own. And I'll tell you, just listening to the folks that have gotten involved has really been enlightening. It really is. And it's not just, even though it says Black Engagement Network, it's for everybody. But the idea is to promote bringing in more of the Black talented and people out there. And then how do we reach out to help others to help them raise themselves up? So it's been one of those things that has come to my attention, and we've worked and tried to put it into play. And there's a lot of folks that deserve a tremendous amount of credit for stuff like this. It's been a growth experience for me. It really has, because I never thought I would have anything like this. And kind of like what Nathan was saying, you don't feel like it's your place, but then you realize, and all of a sudden you see it, and you see the impact you have when you do something. It becomes your place.
Coach, thank you for sharing. That's great. That's great work. Leja, would love to get your thoughts, and how do you think sports can serve as a guiding force for social justice?
I think we have a big platform. I think we've seen, every individual, obviously person, has a platform now through social media, which is one of the really cool things. I think we often talk about the kind of millennials and they're like, oh, we have social media. And we kind of talk about the negative side of it a lot. And I'm often reminded of like the positivity in how these marches wouldn't be happening if there wasn't organizing with young people, like not even the athletes, like the individual accounts that people have been able to use and create through like Black Lives Matter. And so I think that's been really positive. And I think the similar in sports we've seen is just that, we've seen it with the kneeling, we've seen it across sport that like sports aren't political, but we do the national anthem at sports, like everything is political, like my black hair is political, like our existence is political, there's no way around it. So I think we're finally getting to the point where we almost expect athletes to talk. Like we used to be mad at them for speaking out, the Muhammad Ali's, and go down the line of like Kaepernick speaking out. And now we're kind of like, so what do you have to say about activism? And I think it's really cool that we expect that from athletes, but I think it's really cool that we expect that from everyone now, because I think that's been an unjust requirement that we expect Nathan to say something, but not the CEO of Facebook, right? Like, why is his platform, why is he expected to say something and not everyone else? So I think that's a cool accountability we're seeing in this moment. And I think with sports, we have just people care about what we have to say because we're fast at swimming, because we can kick a ball, because we can throw a ball, because we can tackle, because we can shoot an orange ball in a round hoop. I think it's one of the coolest things that people just follow us, and we have influence as athletes, and we've always known that and tried to inspire young people. But now we're seeing it with our political engagement. And I think we have a huge opportunity, and we have to imagine, I think, bigger in this moment that what we can do. I think we're I don't want us to be limited to that we can't actually get laws changed, or we can't actually truly drive. For example, I think this has become the new flag or kneeling conversation, is defunding the police. And I think we have a really huge opportunity to educate people in sports and with our platform, because they will listen to us. And so I think we have an opportunity, one, to explain to people and understanding what defunding the police means, that resources have been funneled out of communities of color, out of education, out of mental health resources, out of people who have addictions, people who experience houselessness. And so that's one of the things I love to see, is that now, if you would have said even 3 weeks ago that the city of LA would have cut that fund, I don't know if everyone knows on the call, the city of LA cut their policing fund by, I think, $150 million, and policing funds can be up to 50% of communities' budget. And so using that to talk about, it's not saying that police shouldn't exist, it's saying we're asking police to do what they're not trained to do. We're asking them to play a role, we're asking them to be the point guard, and they don't know how to dribble. It's not the role they should play. If someone's experiencing mental health, we should have a social worker number that we can call. If people experience houselessness, we shouldn't be calling the police to just move them off the lawn and keep it pushing, as we know incidences get escalated in that way. So I think we have the opportunity to educate, because people will listen to what we have to say more than they'll listen to their mayor or the person that's organizing in their community. And I think we have a really big chance to make an impact and to drive change that we haven't had. This moment is something I don't think I never thought necessarily we'd see in our lifetime. I know some people from the older generation didn't think like we'd be back here marching in the streets again, but there's actually change happening. This isn't a like 2016, oh no, the election happened, oh no, we have to talk about race. This is what's going on in our country. This is really upsetting. And then like nothing really came from it, right? We kind of were just like, wow, we got to talk about this. But there's truly a moment to make that change now. And so with the WNBA, we've been on a bunch of calls similar to you, Ron, of like conference calls and organizing. And for the W, it's been, as women, we're often the names that are forgotten, even in this movement. So you hear the George Floyds, right? You hear a lot of male names, but you don't hear the Tatiana Jeffersons, the Breonna Taylors, the women who have been murdered, you know, by the police and who have not received justice, who have not received the same kind of outpour and cry that we've heard for other people. And so for us, we're looking at like potentially dedicating the season to Say Her Name. And that's a campaign that is exactly dedicated to, you know, hashtagging and saying the names of these women who have been forgotten and trying to raise awareness around their stories. And similar, put pressure on, you know, prosecutors, put pressure on governors, put pressure on the police to reopen their cases and get them justice. And so I think that's one thing specifically with the W, we're kind of focusing on that and how we can highlight for women, like we're the women's voices that don't get heard. How can we make sure we're supporting Black Lives Matter as a whole, but a little more specifically to our issues and make sure the women are, you know, not being left behind.
It's awesome. Awesome. There is a reason why Brian Mann and Jen Moulton put me as the moderator and you three as the speakers. That is awesome. And so thank you. And we have, I know we've gone over time just a little bit. So, but I do want to close. The audience is asking some questions. I want to close with one question to each of you. And you know, I'm not going to give you a lot of time to think about it. But you know, what advice would you give our seniors right now, our Cal seniors who are graduating during this time? I know it's with everything that is going on in the world, in our country, in our communities. What advice would you give our seniors who are graduating this time? I'm going to start out with Nathan. He's the sprinter, so he's going to be quick.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I guess to any graduating senior of the class of 2020, I think just understanding and knowing that, yes, the world is big, the world is scary, but Cal has prepared you so well. And I'm not talking about just like the actual knowledge that you learned in class, because to be totally honest, very few people use that actual knowledge in their daily job. But I think the ability to see a problem and then solve it, and then deal with some way, shape, or form and of adversity. You know, it's not always perfect at Cal. Again, sometimes we have massive classes. Sometimes you can't get time with your professor, or it's raining and you have to walk from Haas Pavilion, again, back up to Haas Business School, and you forgot your umbrella and you don't have rain boots. Any number of things that happen at Cal, like that's the kind of stuff that's going to happen in the real world, and you just got to be ready to tackle it and thrive.
Awesome. Leisha, same question. What advice would you give a graduating senior?
I would say don't lose hope. This moment, great things come out of great challenge and adversity. So right now, I think we're seeing so much of the pain and the angst and the like, I struggle with this. The world is on fire. Like quite literally, it just feels like we're flailing. But that what comes out of that is the creativity and the passion and the power of like the young people. Like that's, now I'm going 29, like I'm getting the old people. Like you are the people that are going to carry us to the future. You're going to build the technology we don't even know it yet. That's going to save all of us. And so you have it. Like don't lose hope in all of this fight, and to know that you know, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, because right now everything feels like we got to change the world in this one moment or it's over. But take care of yourself, because it's a long game. And if you're not healthy and well, like you're not going to be able to fight the good fight. And so just disengage when you need to, because it's not all going to change overnight.
Awesome. Thank you. Coach Rivera, send us out with some words of wisdom, but you have to get yourself off of mute first before you give us your words of wisdom. All right, there we go.
You know, the biggest thing, and again, first of all, just both listening to Elijah and Nathan has really been a thrill for me. You know, and my wife keeps me connected with what goes on in Cal athletics. You know, I'm all over the place, and Stephanie's you know, just an avid sports nut. You know, we both went to Cal. We both graduated from the University of California, Berkeley. She played basketball. So Elijah, she got to go to the Final Four in New Orleans, and that was one of the biggest thrills she's ever had. Nathan, she follows you guys, Olympics. She can tell me everything. You know, Coach, she does. She's kept reminding her, remember, he coaches. I said, I know it's here. It says he's an Olympic coach. I get it. So just so you guys, I'm really thrilled to be here. I really, truly am. But if I was to give the 2020 graduating class a little bit of advice, the biggest thing I tell them is don't just follow, lead. Because I agree with what's been said. Like Elijah said, you're going to be the ones that are going to take us from where we are right now to where we want to be or where we need to be or where we should be as a nation, as a people, as a world. And we're seeing the change that's happening. And don't be a passive follower either. You don't have to be at the back of the line. You can be in the middle. You can be in the front. But you can be up there and just be ready to take charge and help and be part of it. And then one last thing, and I learned this from a really good friend, Dr. Kevin Upple, who told me, be where your feet are. Wherever you are, be there in that moment. Whether you're at home with your family, whether you're at work with your coworkers, whether you're outside on the beach or you're on the basketball court or you're in the pool, be where your feet are. Focus in on that moment in time and don't miss that opportunity you have. Take advantage of those opportunities because you only get so many in life. Good luck to all those 2020 graduates.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Coach. I'm going to kick it over to Brian Mann, and he's going to close us out.
Oh, thank you, Coach, and thank you to the panelists. I hope the people who have joined us understood now what I meant early on when those of us who work in Cal Athletics were as excited about this one as any other. This is a fresh insight, a new perspective for us, and we're thrilled that you guys took the time to do it. Just a couple quick things before we say goodbye. First, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank everybody who joined us today for the incredible support you've shown us this year. The fiscal year ends on June 30th. We're coming to the end, and many of you have been incredibly generous in helping us support our student athletes. So thank you for all that you do. During this time, that support is as important as it has ever been. And certainly, if you'd like to make a gift before June 30th, we'll have a follow-up email for this with a link where you can do so. So thank you for what you've done and what you may do in the future. I also want to remind everybody that our next Caravan event is July 2nd. We're going to talk about the Cameron Institute, and we're incredibly excited to share with you a behind-the-scenes look at this innovative approach to student-athlete development. It's putting Cal at the front of college athletics in that space. We're building it out right now as we sit here, and we look forward to sharing more of it with you. So thank you to Coach Rivera, to Elijah, to Nathan, certainly to Dave for moderating, for Jim Knowlton, and for everybody else that joined us today. Have a terrific day. Thank you for joining us, and go Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Thank you.